Association board's been hard at coming up with new ideas and new programs. Next month, our forum is going to be on off-site farmed wetland determinations, review of slides and things like that. There's rumors that there may be some new guidance coming out on that. Sometimes there's inconsistencies on professional judgment on that, so we want to take a hard look at that next month. The following month, in May, we're going to have a guest speaker talk about nuts and bolts of hydric soils, what you really need to have hydric soils, and how to interpret all those complex characteristics. And then a little bit on what the board has been up to lately. We just decided today that the Wetland Professionals Association is going to have a Facebook page. So look forward to that in the future. We're going electronic big time. We're going to have mini courses we're looking at this summer, where instead of a complex field trip with 20 people, we might have just 3 or 4 or half a dozen people go out for a couple hours on a Saturday and learn some new things and get some direct education credits and things like that. So with that, I'll turn over to Allison and she will introduce our speaker.
All right, well, our speaker today is from the Board of Water and Soil Resources. It's Dennis Rodecker. He is the Metro Region Senior Wetland Specialist. His current duties include routine TAP-related activities, and he's also involved with wetland policy initiatives. Over the past 17 years, Dennis has worked as a wetland specialist and/or soil scientist in both the public and private sectors. And his presentation today is going to be on the local government road wetland replacement program. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I see some familiar faces, some new faces. So, I'm Dennis. I guess I've been working with WAC for the greater part of 15 years, and one of the things that's always been kind of troublesome is this right here, because it's there's not a lot of guidance up there, and then the statute and the rule isn't all that specific. So, who here in this room has worked on road bank applications as part of a local road authority? Just about everybody. Okay. So, some of this stuff you're gonna be aware of. I didn't know what the gap was, so I kind of brought everything from the beginning to the end here to make sure everybody gets a good idea. So, okay, so what we're going to talk about today is my goals are to describe the program to you, what it is, how to use it. In particular, I'll be heavy on the application process of what you need to put in your applications to justify the program use. We'll talk about some of the delineation challenges, and then I will go over the application process from beginning to end. Try not to get too boring there. Okay, so the program description. In 1996, the legislature mandated Bowser to create wetland replacement for local road authorities. Okay, so local road authorities, they were tired of having to deal with this stuff. They went to the legislature and said, please do something. And they said, Bowser, take care of this. Okay, fine, we'll do that. So the legislature gives us money, and we take that money and we generate credits. Okay, so we look on this as the intent of this legislation was to provide a service to the local road authorities. Okay, and one of those services is to recognize and satisfy the 404 requirements. The statute language simply says, take care of WACA for the local road authorities. Okay, if we did that, what service is that to the local road authorities if we don't recognize 404 and take care of them? So, we provide a higher degree of mitigation, higher quality mitigation. If you look at that chart, at 80% of the projects that come in are less than an acre. If you had a local road authority who isn't set up to create credit, do these little pockets of mitigation, where's the function and value in that? So one of the advantages is we provide that quality mitigation. larger sites, higher functioning. Who here has been part of a bank application to generate wetland bank credits? From the same people, okay. Just an FYI for those individuals, there may be some new monies coming in this year, so we can maybe send out some more RFPs. All right, so the scale of the program, well, obviously it's statewide, right? And about 190 credits are used a year. Now, that is dependent on the location. Obviously, the metro is going to be a higher user of these credits than Northeast Minnesota. It's also dependent on road funding. Remember back in 2008, 2009, the stimulus packages? Road projects were the #1 game in town. So it's highly variable how we use these, and we have to go to the legislature and say, hey, for this next biennium, we need $10 million. You know, and they say, well, why do you need that much? Well, here's our basic use. So it's hard for us to go in and give the legislators a hard number, but those are some of the things that we have to play with in order to receive the funding. All right, so who can use it? Local road authorities. And these are cities, the counties, the townships. Okay, and that's about it. People that can't use it are airport commissions. It's not a road, right? Train authorities. Again, it's not a road. State agencies, in particular, in most cases, we're talking about the DOT here, okay? They have their own replacement program, right? They have their own wetland banks, and that's kind of how we got started. The DOT was a partner with us. Developers can't use it. Now, some people argue, say, hey, Dennis, these developers, they're creating new roads, okay? New roads, it's not eligible, but what if they're doing a development and the city says, hey, I need a turn lane here now because you're doing this? Well, that turn lane is caused by the development, and that's why it's not eligible. Federal agencies, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Forest Service, and tribal governments. Now, the caveat with these two is these are big landowners in the state of Minnesota, and what goes through these? County highways, right? County highway has a right-of-way through that. So if there's a CASA 62 is going through Forest Service land, that's still eligible for use in the program because it's in that right-of-way. And the applicant is going to be a local authority. All right, so local road authorities get their money a lot of different ways. And for us, we don't care where the funding comes from. It's who's the project sponsor. A lot of times the county will get their money through the DOT. And the DOT says, and the local road authority work out a deal that says, you know, local road authority, you sponsor the project because we want you to use the road program. We've got our own. We want to keep our credits for our projects. So they'll work out an agreement, but it's really who applies. But wherever you get your money, it doesn't matter. Where it does matter is where you get your money is some of the requirements that get tagged along with it. Okay? We'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so I want to go over the rule a little bit. This is part D of the rule, and a lot of you guys maybe know it. You've read it before, but I want to go over it so you understand where we as an agency are coming from and how we interpret the rule. Okay, so a replacement plan for wetland is not required. Okay, the legislature said local road authorities, you don't need a replacement plan. Okay, because we are the replacement plan. We are the credit generator. So if there's no replacement plan, there's no LGU decision either. We'll get into that. Okay, this is for repair, rehabilitation, reconstruction, or replacement as determined by the public road authority. Now that's a lot of authority right there. That's a lot of power that the local road authority has, because they are the ones that determine the project need. Okay? And it's to meet state or federal design standards or requirements, or safety standards and requirements. And this is where the TEP comes in. We don't evaluate the standards. We're not traffic engineers or safety engineers. We just make sure it's in the application. Okay, a project must minimize wetland impacts. Now, how is the TEP supposed to look at a project and say, you're minimizing these impacts, if we don't know what the standards that you have to meet are, right? A project must also consider replacing important wetland functions on site. Now, I've been doing this probably like road projects over 10 years, and I really haven't had a situation where we've had on-site mitigation that was unique. Think of a wetland adjacent to a trout stream, something like that. Maybe something that's got T&E species in it or something. It's got to be pretty special, because on-site replacement, a lot next to a road, not all great. Project applicant must provide plans to the bank administrator. That'll be at the tail end. And the TEP members is where you really need to focus your efforts, because they're going to be the qualifying governing body there. And then any public requesting a copy. We don't get that too often. All right. So these plans have to come into prior to construction at least 30 days. Now that's high risk, okay? So what happens if you say, you know what, here you go, Dennis, 30 days, you got 30 days, I'm gonna start my project. Okay, all right, Allison, thanks for the project, I'll look at it. Oh, sorry, Allison, guess what, you're not eligible. What did you just do to your client? You really put them in a bind. So maybe this rule or statute says 30 days, but don't do it. Get yourself way ahead of the curve. Pores linger in there too. We know that process. If it's less than 10,000 square feet, or if it's an emergency, then it's 30 days after, and that's fine. But this comes with a bit of risk too, because what happens if, I just got to do this one little thing, this turn lane or this whatever it is, and I'm only going to impact 8,000 square feet. I'm just going to do it. Okay. Now, Allison, you just submitted it to me. I'm like, I'm sorry, this isn't eligible. What did you just do to your client? Emergency work, I mean, if it's a blown out road, obviously, that's fine. But these two come with a lot of risk for the applicant. At an annual meeting, okay. This is an opportunity if a local road authority can get together with the TEP and look at a series of projects. We know we're going to do this stretch of highway and it's going to have all these minor arterials connecting. Well, maybe at that annual meeting we can set up and you get that delineation work done in one shot. Well, that's going to speed everything up. So this is a little known thing that a lot of people don't think about that is a very useful tool. All right. Who knows this? Who's had these issues? Who determines qualification and why? It's the TEP, okay? Because remember, the local road authority has to justify the use of the program by design standards or safety standards, and the TEP is there to not evaluate the standards, but to ensure that they're in the application and they make sense. So, and there's a risk of an appeal. Let's say a local road authority, remember that language is as determined by the local road authority. They say, we're going to go ahead and plow through. Okay. Well, they make a decision on a design, and we say, you know what, you could really do some minimization here or something alternative, something different, and we appeal it. The TEP has the right to appeal. We don't want to appeal. That's bad business for everybody. So we made up this TEP sign-off thing. There's nothing in rule or statute that says the TEP must sign off. We just thought, we're going to provide this service, and the most efficient way to do this, to lower the risk of appeals, to have no appeals, it's like, let's make the TEP on board. Sign off on it. And that's why it's part of the form now. All right, LG noticing. How many of you guys are LGUs as well? Who's clear on the noticing of all these road projects? Other than you. It's tough. And then this is accurate. Yes, no, maybe a little bit. All right, delineations. Okay, notice of application, notice of decision. These are routine. A delineation is a delineation is a delineation, doesn't matter what the project is. Okay? So an LGU must notice the application and decision. What if you get a project that is partly eligible for the program and partly not? Trail projects or road projects that have accompanying trails are common here. So you're going to use the program for something, and you're going to go to a state bank for something else. Well, that LGU notices the application, and then you also notice the decision for the use of the private bank. But everything is still kept together in one package. Okay? So the TEP signs off, it all becomes one thing. If a project comes in and they're going to use strictly the road bank, then the LGU notices the application, okay? Because that starts everybody on the clock, and it's a consistent way to proceed. But there is no notice of decision. Why is there no notice of decision?
Defaults to Bowser.
Right, Bowser's we're the replacement plan. Remember, it says no replacement plans required. Well, if no replacement plans required, no LGU decision is required.
So if you notice it, do you withdraw your notice? Do you need to?
You mean your notice of application?
Yeah.
No, you
You
notice
just
the
don't-
application.
And that's it?
Yep,
You're-
that's it, yep. Because if we started monkeying around with it, people get confused, they even work, and then already are. Everybody, you notice the application, okay, that's how we do business. We're gonna keep going there. Okay, so, the activities that are covered, repair and rehabilitation. These are pretty minor, okay? These are gonna be your turn lanes. These are gonna be your, give me another one. Turn lane, what's another minor one? Maybe,
Widening the shoulder.
what's that?
Widening the shoulder.
Excellent, widening the shoulder, something minor. You're not doing much of the road, just adding it up, maybe a little bit of road widening, okay? Now reconstruction, here's where you're blowing things up. You're going from a 2-lane to a 4-lane, okay? You're gonna reconstruct that whole road. And then replacement is you're taking the existing road and you're saying, look, where this road is and why it's here right now is unsafe. There's all these things wrong with it, and we're justifying the use of the program. We're going to take this road and we're going to move it here because it's safer. School access. School access, that's like magic words. You're going to remove access for a school. And remember, currently serviceable roads. There's some roads up in northern Minnesota that aren't really roads. They were this trail, this 2-track, and it was through a wetland, and hasn't been used for anything other than ATV traffic for the last 20 years. Local road authority come in, hey, we're going to redo this road program. It's like, it's not a currently serviceable road. Okay? Not so much of an issue in the metro. All right. Some of the ones that aren't covered. New roads, new development, got to have a road. Yeah, it's going to become a public road. They're going to turn it over, but it's a new road. It's not eligible. And I get this a lot. City comes in and they say, Dennis, we got to change this road. We got to update this road because I got this development up here that's coming in. That's going to be 400 units. And over here I got another one. That's going to be 300 units. The traffic on this road is going to spike in the next 10 years. Great. Hey, you should do your road, man. That's fine. Great project. Can't use the program. So if you're submitting an application to me or Ben in the Metro, and you're basing on forecasted average daily traffic counts, it's gonna be a problem. Wetlands mined for road building. More of a northern issue, okay? They gotta build this road, they need aggregate. Where are they gonna get it? Hey, there's a wetland over here, let's dig a hole. Oh, well now we just dug this sedge meadow or we dug this thing 20 feet deep. We call it impact, Corps calls it impact. Can't use it, not eligible. Turn your own. Airport facilities, anything to do with the airport. Access roads, runways, fences, garages, whatever, you're out. So MAC, Metropolitan Airport Commission, they made their own bank in Ham Lake. SCH did that. In transportation facilities, county highway, local road authority, I need salt shed. All right. Hey, City of Columbus says, you know what, Dennis? We're gonna put a parking lot here. This is a ride and share. This is gonna take vehicles off the roads, make the road safer, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, can't do it. No parking lots. This one comes into the metro quite a bit. We got to increase the drainage. This got developed over here, this got developed, and this got developed, and all of a sudden, I got all this water. Well, unless that water is a threat to the structural integrity of that road. Remember, the drier the core of a road is, the safer it is. And who goes, if you're driving down in northern Minnesota and you know this road is through a wetland and you start seeing this action, right? We've all driven on those kinds. That's because the core of the road is saturated. So, only if it's threatening the structural integrity will we cover it. Roads through tribal or U.S. Fish and Wildlife ownership and control. Okay, this is a forest road. This is some small two-track or paved road in the reservation that does not have a right-of-way. Oh, all right, and then project started to the application review and approval. You know, you start it and then you apply. You just kill it yourself. Except for, again, the emergency in less than 10,000 square feet. We talked about that. Okay, so here I had this really corny joke, and I'm gonna spare you. This is the stuff that's really important. Okay, this is the stuff that you're sitting at the temp, and this is where we're going through the meat of the details. If you've been doing this for a while, and you think, gosh, never had to do that before, that's okay, because, you know, things evolve and all that stuff. So, we'll just have to learn new ways if that happens. Okay. Generally, in order for a local road authority to get funding from federal highways or DOT, they had to do some type of analysis, okay, to get the funding. So, the two things, and these are the two things that I want you guys to think about every time you write an application. If there's two things you take away from today, it's these right here, okay? So, what criteria or deficiency is the local road authority using to justify the project? Okay? What is it? What's going on? Is it a design issue? Is it a safety issue? Is it some other requirement? And then, how are they related to the state or federal safety standards that are out there? Okay? There is no, what I've learned through going through these applications is there's so many things to look at. There are MnDOT state standards. There are. But that doesn't cover all the situations. There's it's called the Highway Capacity Manual. Okay? It's kind of like a user's guide on this is how things go. So these are the kind of things we'll be looking at. And remember, we as a tech, we're not judging or evaluating these standards and practices. We just put it in the application. You say, Dennis, I gotta have this because this state standard says I gotta do this. Okay, it's in the application. Good. All right, so some common data, ADTs, and I realize that not every local road authority is gonna have the level of data that we go through here, okay? Sometimes they don't have any, if they're doing it on their own, which is a tougher argument for you as a consultant, but it doesn't necessarily kill the project or kill the use of the program. So, but here's some common ones. ADTs, again, show the deficiency in the current conditions. Why? Like ADT is way too high for this type of road. This is a 2-lane rural undivided. My ADTs are 15,000 and it's rated for, 10,000. Okay? I'm not going to pretend to understand what 15,000 cars a day looks like. What? I'm going to make sure it's in the application. And then put it into context. How that project meets the standards. Okay? Engineering design standards. There's a lot of professional judgment when it comes to these engineers. It's fine. They're an engineer. This is their job. But they need to be able to communicate what these standards are and the justification for those standards. Sometimes there's new standards that come in. Bridges and culverts. All of a sudden, hey, I got to do something. Well, now there's a new water quality standard. What is it? All right, here's one. Right now, I'm sitting here, and John Smythe is not here, right? Okay. Saw 64 down in Dakota County. They say, Dennis, I got to have shoulder widths of 6 feet, and we're going to do a trip. Okay, John, what's your justification? Well, he's like, oh, okay. Well, so he had to go back, talk to the applicant, and then they got together, and they said, look, our ADTs are, they're like 3,000. And they said, well, here's a table, and this is for a bike trail, or for the road that's going to be also used to facilitate bike travel. They say, my lane width has to be 12. Currently, my lane width is 11 feet. My shoulder width has to be 6 feet. Right now, it's 3. Okay, you're in. Data commonly used to determine eligibility. This I just recently got from an engineer at SEH, and I really appreciate that. So, an intersection they'll measure the crash data, okay? There's several ways they'll measure it. They could do it in million miles per vehicle, which I have no idea what that means, but there's different ways to evaluate it. One way is they look at these roads. So here's your crash rate here. Here's the average. That's safe. We're good to go. Here's like, just there's a random nature to crashes, and you're still fairly safe. And here's this critical rate. Hey, this thing is bad. We're going to change things. So in that crash data, show the deficiency, and then put it into context for me. We're going to go through some specific examples of of applications that have come in that I've reviewed. All right, so that's what we'll do here. Questions so far? Quiet group. It makes me nervous. Okay, so turn lanes. Maybe you look at the ADTs. Maybe you look at crash data. Are they higher to the state or federal standards? Okay, so you think of a turn lane, what else are you going to measure? Here's an application that came in. They said the crash rate from these years was 5.87 per million vehicle miles. I have no idea what per million vehicle miles means. Okay? They said that for this one, the rate was 5.87 for that intersection. State standard said 1.4. Now the fact that I don't know what million vehicle miles means is irrelevant. What I know is they have 5.87 currently, and this is the limit. So they put the data into usable context. Now I understand. Oh, okay. You're unsafe. That's what I'm trying to understand. Is this unsafe or not? Change of intersection configuration. Collisions higher at a current configuration than state or federal standards allow. Okay. A lot of times, if you're using state or federal funding, there's limits on you. These are your standards. Here's your MnDOT road design manual. Okay. So it'll be your job as a consultant to kind of go through and figure out what part is applicable. If you give me the whole manual and say, here you go, Dennis, this is the standards, I can't use that. So They have to go through it and find what's applicable. Here's something that is useful. This one is level of service for signalized intersections. I got this in an application. I'm like, what does this mean? They said, we have a LOS of D. I'm like, great. Put that into something I can use. Put it into my speak. Basically, what it means is you're approaching unstable flow. Okay, that's just another way they evaluate it. Okay. They also looked at this. They said, hey, some of our intersections are here, some of our intersections are here, and some of our intersections are here. Okay. So here we are. This is a project that we're currently working through. I've got 6 intersections. Some are safe, some aren't. What am I supposed to do? Okay. Well, I'm not going to sit there and try to pick apart, this little bit is eligible for the program, this little bit isn't eligible, because really, where's the level of service for that? In my mind, I'm thinking, hey, you're in or you're out. Okay? And if we can make some justification that you're in, you're good. So here's an example that came in. This one, they measured the fatality severity rate for the road. It was 1.05. Again, I don't know what fatality severity rate, what that means, how that's calculated or anything. Okay? I'm taking your word that it was 1.05. Okay? Or, I'm sorry, that the standard is 1.05. They came in and said, hey, this intersection is 3.05. 3.05 is greater than 1.05. That's what I'm going to look at. That makes sense? It's in the usable context. All right, these are very common. These are going to fall into the repair or rehabilitation. What's your current condition? What's your current lane or shoulder width? What are your ADTs? Does it matter? Maybe, what standard are you using? I'm picking on this one because it was easy to find, but there's about 40 of these tables in that design manual. And 8820 it's a real state statute out there. All right, so here's one. Existing road at 2 feet wide gravel shoulders, ADTs at 7,000. Okay, that standard that I just showed you said, hey, at 1,500, I got to have 8 feet, 2 feet minimum pay. So you told me what was wrong. You cited the standard. So do you see this recurring thing that I keep going over? It's one of the biggest problems that we have is the lack of justification for the project. I get these applications that come in and they say, we're going to do this and we're going to use the road program. That's all I get. How am I supposed to react to that? What if you're straightening curves? You've got a really windy road and now it's starting to be used more frequently. There's design speed curve ratings out there. Okay? So I think some of your bigger firms may be at more advantage than some of the smaller ones because like SEH, you got design guys. Okay? They can pull this stuff off. Because we're wetland consultants, what the heck do we know about this stuff? Right? If you're going to lessen the side slope, go from a 2-to-1 to a 4-to-1. There's design standards, or speed design standards, and average daily traffic counts that you can use to justify that project. What standard does existing condition conflict? Keep that in. That's a question to keep in your head as you write the application. Here's one. This was an actual project. They came in and we're going to straighten it. They said this road is designed for 45 miles per hour. This curvature radii is way too high for that design speed. Here's the excerpt in the design manual. Okay, you're in. Thank you. All right. So here's a road replacement. This is where they moved the road. Brand new. Here's where the road went. This red line. And then they moved it. And I said, what the heck did they say? All right, they said for this, the ADTs, you had, over the last 15 years, this place had a lot of development, okay? And it happens to be adjacent to or nearby 35W, okay? So you got a lot of people, this is a bedroom community, you got a lot of people hitting this county road, coming down and getting on the freeway. Well, they said, Dennis, I need a new road. So why can't you use this existing road? Well, right now the ADTs are too high for that condition. There's no shoulders, so it's unsafe. We're having crashes left and right because you've got farm traffic mixed with people trying to get to work at 8 o'clock in the morning in the cities. So they said, look, we're just going to design this new roadway. So as they designed it, it ended up having less impact than widening and updating a new road. They kept the existing road because you had farmers using this road. But say, okay, you met safety standards, design standards, and you minimize wetland impact. We didn't have to do anything to this other road. So we got them in. That was a tough one. I don't remember who wrote the application, but they were very persuasive and they did a good job. So, this program, it's tax dollars. People say, oh, we're going to use the BWSR program. It's like, well, I'm not paying for it. BWSR's not paying for it. We're paying for it. It's tax dollars. We just happen to have the authority to manage it. So we're not sitting there trying to hoard these credits. We want to push them out the door and help local road authorities. So good applications, great. That helps. All right, so a bridge or culvert needs repaired. And all of a sudden now there's new water quality standards by the watershed district or the MPCA. Okay, fair enough. Why is it needed? What happened? Well, the culvert's destroyed. Okay, that's fair enough. And the new standards say I have to have a 36-inch box culvert instead of this 18-inch corrugated steel one to reduce velocity. Super. Great. Curb and gutter. This one's pretty big in the metro right now because you've got a lot of these roads that have been built back 30, 40 years ago, and now all these developments are springing up, and hey, we're going to redo this road. Oh, curb and gutter, the city says, here it is in the rule. Okay, so why is it needed? Give us a justification, and then discuss what standards there are. City says we have to have this because of this. Okay, great. Super, thank you. You're in. Stormwater ponds. Our water quality standards have increased in the last 15 years. So we see a lot of these different projects, and a lot of them happen to, where's water going to go? It's going to go to the low spot, right? So we end up having these stormwater ponds in the wetlands. So cite the standard, tell us what the constraints are, we'll get it in there. But it's not meant for regional stormwater issues, okay? Not regional stormwater ponds. So here's a real application that came in. They said, we're going to repave this road. While we're at it, we're going to install curb and gutter because we've got new water quality standards. But we've got this existing issue. So their solution was, we're going to create a regional stormwater pond. We're going to take care of our drainage issues, repave this road, and increase the downstream water quality all in one shot. Great. Super project. We replace for this? Somebody answer. I'll sit here all day. No? Why wouldn't we replace for curb and gutter? If they justified it.
Oh, for the curb and gutter, not for the regional stormwater.
Right. Yep. So here's an application where the LGU is going to need to make a decision. Okay, so this is one of those, if you're an LGU, that you have the TEP sign-up form and you make a decision. Additional lanes, we get this a lot. And they're only if they are necessary to safely accommodate existing traffic counts, which kind of belies logic. okay? Because if a local road authority is acknowledging, hey, this road is gonna be starting to be used much more, and we're gonna need to upgrade this, hey, that's great planning. That's super project. Sorry, but currently, you don't qualify. So, if you're going from a 2-lane to a 4-lane, and your ADTs are okay today, then sorry, you can't use it. So if you have it in your application, you say, well, the forecasted ADTs, boom, right there. You just threw up a big red flag, okay? Again, ADT's crash data compared to design standards is useful. So here, this was a project in Washington County. It was a 2-lane undivided rule, and they came in and they said, look, you know, we're going to go from 2-lane to 4-lane, we're going to divide it, and we're going to have a trail. I say, great. What's your justification? They said, our ADTs for this road were like 22,000, and our crash ratios were high, and the severity rate was high. I said, okay, hey, you know what? Based on a highway capacity measurement, this table pulled right from it. They showed me the data. You're in. Good job. Trails. These are hard. Who has processed one of these? How many times? Yeah. Do we say no? You know, yeah, they're hard. Because where in the rule does it say anything about trails? The rule talks about road projects, roads. Why should we, in any way, shape, or form, replace the trails?
If you're impacting an existing trail.
Yep, if you are impacting or moving an existing trail, you're in, no problem. It's when you start having new trails or new trail segments is when it gets sticky, okay? This is an oversimplified application or scenario. Who thinks we'd replace for that? Anybody? Who says no? Raise your hand. Who says yes? We will. We will replace for this. This is very applicable in the metro area because you have such a high network of trails that, you know, it comes down to a level of service. Really, are we going to pull this little schmitzy thing out? It's where you have trails that never existed, and yeah, maybe they're connecting to these regional trails, but the extent is miles and miles. It becomes this scale issue. So I can't sit up here and give you the exact specifications of when and we won't, because it's so variable that you just have to come in and it's a case-by-case basis. So I will say this. There is in 2009, there was complete streets legislation. Anybody heard of that? Okay. Basically, what this is the legislature said to these road authorities, and said, look, you don't just look at the road, you look at, or look at cars and trucks as a mode of transportation. You look at all forms, bikes, pedestrians, whatever. Take a look at that and base your project needs on that. Now, you don't have to always do a trail, but by this state statute, local road authorities are obligated to look at this. And that's a tool for them to use. And they can say, look, I got this trail over here, and I got this trail over here, and I got this school over here. And you just said the magic word. So, these are going to be hard. Don't be surprised if half the applications you come in, we say yes, half we say no. Okay?
How about trail widths? Take an existing 4-foot trail and standard 8 or 10 feet for two-way traffic, bike users, all that.
Yeah. There's design standards for trails.
So that'd be applicable to them just using this current
Yeah.
design standard?
If we say, yeah, you're good for a trail here, and you say, here's the design standards for that trail, Okay, thanks. Sometimes, in certain situations, trails are required. Say you're doing a roundabout and you have federal funding, got it, they're trailing. So those are a little bit easier for us to handle because, again, you're measuring a need for the intersection change, and then you're quoting a standard, or you're showing us a justification. Okay? So, in your application, this came from an excellent consultant that I know. If you have an application and we say, look, no, sorry, trail isn't in, so you got to do a private bank. So now how do we measure the impacts? How do we quantify each set of impacts? So in AutoCAD, whatever the engineers use, they're going to do this design, they're going to do this, and then you as a consultant have to find some creative way. I like orange highlighter, it's very nice, to help us count up the number. How else are we going to do it? Okay? Okay, so delineation challenges, and basically we're talking about ditches here. Okay, they can be fairly simple, and they can be very complicated, and they can be challenging to quantify. So some things we look at: is this what's left of a historic wetland? Is it created within a wetland? Is it created within an upland? Is it an intermittent drainage way? Is it a rifle pool complex? Is it a deep water habitat? Maybe it's 10 feet deep. It's not even a wetland. The first step, I stop sometimes just to make sure I'm not going too fast. Okay, the first step, and this really goes beyond just road project. This is delineation in general, is when in doubt, go back to manual, okay? What is a delineation? Is an inventory resource, that's all it is. Or resource inventory, okay? We're just counting up what's on the landscape, that's all it is. All right, so science first, delineation first, whatever you want to call it, get that done first. All the aquatic resources, okay? Whether it's a drainage ditch or whatever. If it's got water moving through it, put a line on it. So once we get the delineation done, now we can go back and we can implement policy. Is it a natural wetland? Is it a natural upland? How are we going to rate this thing? And why is this important? It's all about the numbers, okay? There's going to be wetlands that we regulate that the Corps doesn't regulate, and vice versa, okay? So don't expect in these applications that the WAC numbers and Corps numbers are going to be the same. They might be different, so that's why it's important to get all the aquatic resources, get a line on it. Now we'll dive into it. Otherwise what happens is you have a perfectly good delineation that has intermingled the policy in the same paragraphs, and the interpretation that you have in your delineation is wrong, or we don't agree with it. What happens? You just force that LGU to deny a delineation. So now it makes sense to have these delineations and your policy interpretation in one document. That's fine. Have it as an appendix, but don't intermingle them in one paragraph. This is a PEM to blah blah blah, and it's not jurisdictional because of blah blah blah. Don't do it. That doesn't help. All right. So I've got some examples. These are fairly simple ones. We wish they were all this easy. We have a ditch and we have an upland. Okay, so need a data point here? Really? No, not really. You gotta flag it. And don't just do a line. Because how am I gonna count up numbers on a line? It's gotta be a polygon, okay? So in your delineation report, it could be as simple as a description, a map, you're describing the ditch, how it's excavated, and the surrounding area. Okay, easy peasy. How about this one? How are you going to delineate this one? So you've got hydric soils outside of the ditch. Is that area drain? Is that area wetland? You know, you may have to delineate both perpendicular to the road and parallel to the road. Because you have to, if you're doing it perpendicular, then you have to get where the wetland starts and ends within the right of way. Well, what if the wetland goes out but not quite out past the right of way? Then you gotta do it perpendicular. And this one is contiguous with the wetland. So here you would just outline where the wetland is on this side and on that side. On that side it doesn't matter because maybe the right of way ends right here. So. All right, so in this situation, you go out there and you delineate it and you put a line around this one. Well, is this, once we delineate it, now we think about policy. Is that jurisdictional? What if this was a Zimmerman sand? And this is 8-foot deep ditch. Obviously, you know, a ditch to an upland. You know, non-jurisdictional. This one's a little bit harder, okay? So here, you delineate it fine, you're outside, you're right away. Well, what about up here? And up here? Someone's gonna need to make a determination. Because maybe that darker green area up there is what? Don't know. So you'd have to make an interpretation on that. And this is what I mean by being parallel and perpendicular. Does this do anything for me? Does that justify a line? No, because the wetland goes way out. But this one here, now you're doing it parallel. And what about this one up here? Where your right of way is farther out than your wetland boundary. So when you're out there, the point to this is when you're out there is think about where the data points are that mean something. Is a data point, is your dry data point on your road shoulder meaningful? No, it doesn't mean anything. So when you're thinking about where you put your data points, put them where they have meaning and put them where they're tough. Don't go for the easy ones. You know, if you have a 5-to-1 side slope that comes down to the wetland, well, that's an easy boundary. Put it where there's a zone. That's where the data points have meaning. That's where the real science comes